Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like you'll be all right. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. How is everybody today?
Fabulous.
Great.
You guys are going to have too much fun with the technology, I think, today. Well, welcome to the board meeting for April for the Central Indiana Regional Transportation Authority. Our board president, Jerry Bridges, is online. Jerry, we do have a quorum. So if you want to kick us off with introductions, we can go ahead and get started.
We can do that. I was going to say, it looks almost like an Inquisition board there. So we'll go ahead and get started today with our agenda. Thanks for everybody attending today. I'm in Minneapolis today. I've been there for the last 4 or 5 days for training. We had great weather until today, kind of cold, wet, and windy, but thankful for everything else. So we'll get started with introductions. If you'll please start. Actually, Kylene, I'm going to put you on the spot since you're our new board member. And would you be start off and give us a little bit about information about you? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kylene Swackhammer. I'm the Executive Director from the Delaware-Muncie Metropolitan Plan Commission. So I'm from Muncie, Indiana. This is my first meeting, so I'm happy to be a part of this board. Interested to learn and just grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good morning, Andrew Kleinman, representing the city of Indianapolis.
Larry Hessen, representing Hendricks County.
Good morning, I'm Ann Scheidler, representing Hancock County.
Good morning, I'm Linda Sanders, representing Shelby County.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Gebhardt, Executive Director for CIRTA.
Greg Haneke, in the city of Indianapolis.
Ron Deere, Johnson County.
Rob Wagner, local 1070.
Sarah Troutman, CIRTA.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's go ahead and we'll take the folks online. So we've got some folks online. So Ann's online. You want to go ahead and just introduce yourself?
Thank you. Ann Poindexter, legal counsel for CIRTA.
Cinda?
Cinda Kelly, Kelly and Associates, representing the Plainfield EID.
Pam?
Cam Stearns, representing the excluded cities and town of Marion County.
Corinne?
Karen Brooks. I'm the Director of Way to Go Transportation at Socoa Aging and In-Home Solutions.
David? Did you hear me, David?
David Johnson, Transpro Consulting. Good morning.
Thank you. Katie's on as well. So Katie, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Katie Jarenka with Transpro Consulting.
We've got some others that looks like they're unidentified, so I can't tell you who they are. I don't see a picture. It just says,
Jerry, the rest of the board members that are listed as just CIRTA board member are the board members and myself up here on the platform.
Okay,
for the record.
Jen, do you want to kind of direct us through with the folks on that are there in person?
Yeah, so in the audience, we have Amanda Meyer, Mobility Manager and Assistant Director for CIRTA, Brandy, Financial Consultant for CIRTA, Rick Cockram, a Legislative Representative for CIRTA, Sebastian, Program Manager for the Commuter Connect CIRTA program, Philip Roth, Consultant, and Ryan Wilhite with Indigo, as well as our two additional staff members who are still waiting for any last minute representatives to come in, Eve and David.
Is Jen here today?
Jen is not in person today. She was going to be, I thought, coming in virtually.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss her. Okay. Give me just a minute. Thanks for everybody's introductions, and let me get the agenda pulled up. Okay, first item we have in terms of business is our consent agenda items. That's standard. We usually only vote on all those items. So if there are no questions on it, I'll take a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion.
Is that Linda?
Second.
Okay. Can you please call out your name when you do that so we'll know who it is?
Rob with a second.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Do we have any discussion on the resolution? If not, we'll take a roll call vote for resolution 2024-04-16-01, adoption of consent agenda. Jen?
Jerry Bridges,
Yes.
Greg Haneke,
Yes.
Larry Hessen,
Yes.
Linda Sanders,
Yes.
Don Adams, Christine Altman, Ron Deere, Andrew Kleinman, Ann Scheidler,
Yes.
Just lost my connection, Jen.
it's okay, Cam Stearns,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
and Destiny. Okay,
Okay,
Jerry, are you still with us?
I am. So if you can hear me, motion carries.
Mhm.
Thank you all. Next item up is new business. First item is resolution 2024-04-16-02, resolution to approve CIRTA office lease agreement. Jen, you want to give us a quick update?
Yeah, sure. Our current lease at our current location at the 320 North Meridian office space is due for renewal in September. We went ahead and did some shopping just, for the purposes of procurement to compare our current rates. We compared our current location to 4 other locations downtown. They ranged anywhere from $18 a square foot to $27 a square foot. We are currently paying $20.70 a square foot at $1,983.75 a month. I am recommending this resolution to renew our current lease to stay at our current location. It would be a $59.25 increase per month at a $711 increase per year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Jen? If not, I'll take a motion on the resolution. Do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Linda. Do we have a second?
Seconds.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve resolution 2024-04-1602 for approval of the office lease. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Jerry Bridges,
Yes.
Greg Henneke, Larry,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Don Adams, Christine Altman, Ron Deere, Andrew, Anne,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Kylie, Rob,
Yes.
Destiny.
Motion carries. Next item up is resolution 2024-04-16-03, resolution to approve financial services contract. Jen, do you want to give us an update?
Yes. Our current financial services contract was up for renewal. We went ahead and reached out to 7 different organizations for quotes. We received back 2 proposals. One of those being from CSW Consulting, which is our current provider with Brandy and Julie. In addition to that, their rate was staying the same at $7,000 per month. Our other alternative option came back at $8,475 a month. So this contract is to recommend to stay with CSW Consulting. This is a 2-year term.
Do we have any questions of Jen? If not, I'll take a motion for approval on the resolution.
Move approval.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Jerry Bridges,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Don Adams, Christine Altman, Ron,
Yes.
Andrew, Anne, Pam,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
and Destiny.
Motion carries. Thank you much. Next item up is Resolution 2024-04-16-04, resolution to appoint voting members to the Indianapolis MPO Transportation Technical and Policy Committee. Jen?
Sure. With our recent mobility management manager moving on to a different organization and Amanda Meyer getting promoted to the mobility management position and as assistant director. This is to just update our voting members to both of those boards. This resolution keeps Christine Altman as the voting member for the Transportation Policy Committee with myself and Amanda as her proxies. And this resolution appoints Amanda Meyer as the technical committee voting member with myself as her proxy.
Does anybody have any questions of Jen on this? If not, I'll take a motion for approval.
One quick, so I assume, I don't, it's Christine's good with this appointment then?
Yeah, she is. She's currently on the appointment. So this is just a technicality to just update it, to really add Amanda as a proxy and keeping Christine as there.
I don't think Christine's on that side.
No, understood.
Volunteer
Yeah.
for something she doesn't
No,
want, but all right.
she's
okay.
good.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. Move approval.
Yeah, Andrew, that's a good point. So I appreciate that. So, yeah. Okay, we have a roll call vote because we have a motion and a second. So, Jen?
I don't think we did roll call yet.
We haven't. That's one.
We haven't. We're going to do that now. Jerry Bridges,
Yes.
Greg, Larry, Linda,
Yes.
Don Adams, Christine, Ron Deere, Andrew, Ann, Pam,
Yes.
Kylene,
Yes.
Robert, and me.
Yes.
Get me off there.
Jen, I think I can't hear you at this end.
Oh, I got through the list.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Am I cutting out or?
You may have, I don't know. It looks like my screen froze for a second, so it might just been momentary. Okay, motion's approved. Next item up is item D, Resolution 2024-04-16-05, resolution to approve American Structure Point invoice. Jen, you want to just chime in on this, please?
Yeah, this is for our monthly contract with American Structure Point for Philip Ross Services, who's been assisting us with technical support for the mobility management program and the projects we have going on. This has been a reoccurring invoice. It's a not to exceed $5,000 per month.
Does anybody have any questions of Jen? If not, I'll take a motion for approval in a second.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion? If not, Jen, you want to do a roll call vote, please?
Mm-hmm. Jerry,
Yes.
Greg,
Abstain.
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Adams, Christine Altman, Ron Deere, Andrew Kleiman,
Yes.
Ann Scheidler,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Kylene, Rob, Destiny,
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item up is E, Resolution 2024-04-16-06, resolution to contract for promoting the Whitestown Connector. Jen, you want to give us an update, please?
Sure. Back in November, the Whitestown EID agreed to add a $50,000 marketing budget to promote ridership for the Whitestown Connector. So this is a contract resolution to approve that we would go into agreement with the Whitestown EID, and we would be responsible for overseeing a $50,000 marketing push And then we'll talk about it here in a moment, but the next resolution is to extend the current contract with Jen Thomas, who would oversee that marketing, do the work of that marketing, $50,000 program, and we would oversee those efforts for that program.
Does anybody have any questions of Jen on this?
What's the source of the funds?
It's coming from the Whitestown EID.
Any other questions of Jen? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the resolution.
Greg moves.
Linda seconds.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, Jen, would you do roll call, please?
Jerry,
Yes.
Greg, Larry,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Christine, Ron, Andrew, Anne,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Kylie, Rob,
Yes.
and Destiny.
Motion carries. Next item up is resolution 2024-04-16-07, resolution to amend contract for public relations firm. Jen, you kind of alluded to that being with Jen for the Whitestown promotion. Do you want to have any further discussion on that?
I don't think there's any really further discussion that's needed unless there's any questions. And we're having a kickoff meeting after this resolution is approved. Right now it's being discussed that we might look at digital and direct mail options for this. But again, it's ultimately going to be per our recommendations of national best practices and then whatever the EID would like us to do.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Jen? Any further questions? If not, I entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Rob.
Thank you.
Linda second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, Jen, you want to do roll call, please?
Jerry Bridges,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Larry.
Yeah.
Linda.
Yeah.
Don. Christine.
Yeah.
Andrew. Anne,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Kylie, Rob, and Destiny.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item up is presentation by Transpro Consulting with David Johnston. So David, do you want to, Jen, can you get it where you can share the screen? So.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, good morning, everybody. Back with you again to share sort of the final readout from our regional transit technology project. So happy to, let's see, screen sharing, come on. There we go. All right. So a lot of this information we shared with you at your last board meeting, so we'll quickly speed through that. So we'll be really kind of focusing on what's changed since then. So quick project overview, we were scoped to develop a consensus and implementation plan for a demand response platform to support the region's transportation providers. Previous study did not do those two things, but did highlight lots of other recommendations, which we incorporated into our work. We always start a project with a shared definition of success. And so the working team agreed on that this statement that CIRTA will implement a unified demand response system that facilitates cross-county mobility while ensuring local control for all jurisdictions. The problem with cross-county mobility today is customers struggle with making these trips work. CIRTA is doing a good job of providing information to customers, but when it comes to taking those trips, customers are a little on their own if they even understand CIRTA's role in cross-county mobility and the information provided there. So just a couple of trip examples there that would require mapping together two different providers. Our technical advisory committee, which you're probably all familiar with these names, they have been really instrumental in making this plan come to life. It was consensus driven as our scope required, and everybody participated and had their say. And the pilot program we're talking about is a result of that. So here's the framework that we developed to guide the pilot creation. So aligning, which is where the pilot goes, on policy and working on agreements. In this case, there'll be MOUs, not interlocals. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then designing the cross-county pilot to test this alignment. Coordinate would be the next phase after the pilot's complete with fares, trip planning, and the actual demand response system itself. Integration would follow with fare collection, system integration, demand response system integration and joint procurement, and regional vehicle tracking. And all throughout this framework, these different phases, the one call, one click program that CIRTA currently runs would evolve to meet the new feature set. We adjusted these timeframes a little bit based on the design of the pilot. So since the pilot is in the alignment phase, that's now 12 to 18 months. The coordination steps would be 2 years following that, a little bit of overlap, and then the integration would follow that. The pilot itself is pretty much in the same form from when we last spoke to you. The only change we've made, a couple of changes actually, is changing the transfer point between Hamilton and Hancock counties. That's through agreement with the providers. And these steps are pretty much all the same. So just quickly recap, customer would contact CIRTA or the providers to reserve their cross-county trip. And then
that's fine.
Jen Thomas, could you mute?
Totally good.
Thank you. Then CIRTA or the provider would input trip details into the shared system that's currently in place amongst 4 providers, and that's CTS TripMaster or some other online form to share trip information between organizations. And the scheduling provider would confirm the trip with the customer, and the originating provider would bring the customer to the transfer point, collect the proposed $8 fare, which represents the highest fare of the 2 systems combined. And then the transfer point at McCordsville, where there would be a warm handoff to make sure the customer gets to where they're going. And the second provider would not collect a fare in this case, but would collect it on the return trip back. And that way that avoids any revenue being shared between the providers. So an important thing that we've recommended throughout this project is that the organizations participating need to have something in writing. And we originally proposed interlocal agreements, but after some additional analysis and the confirmation that if there are no funds being transferred, then interlocal would not be appropriate. So we've evolved into a memorandum of understanding, which is basically restating all of the same things that were in the prior interlocal draft. And then that would then provide confidence to customers that these trips will be supported for the 1-year pilot as CIRTA marketing efforts increase and outline the agreement between those agencies that are supporting the trips. And I'll pause there for any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for David?
Okay. So wrapping up, our next steps are to encourage CIRTA to continue to convene the TAC and finalize a couple of pilot details, which we'll be helping with, namely the question of what supporting round trips versus one-way trips and the marketing focus on job access. I think there's been some realization, which is definitely based in reality, that it might be a struggle for people using these services to get to work. But that's the goal of the pilot, is to find out, to gather that kind of information. And again, the 2 providers in the pilot, Hamilton and Hancock counties representing service there, and then some additional technology coordination with TripMaster, the vendor. And I should note that we're kind of focusing on TripMaster just because they're already in place with multiple providers. At the end of this, we are proposing a competitive procurement that would pick that new system for the region. And with that, that's the end of our presentation.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Thank you, David, for the time that you and Katie and your team have put in on this and being adaptive to some of the questions that came up. I also want to thank Anne for her input in terms of what she provided us for legal advice on this as well. So, as well as the CIRTA team. So, okay, next item up is partner contribution methodology. Jen, Brandy, and Phil.
Just a second, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a committee that had a number of different counties, and I, of course, saw Johnson County Access. So what's happening with the other groups and their involvement?
Actually, I can answer part of that, and then Jen or David can chime in. We decided that we would do a one-year pilot to see how this works out, and then eventually want to push this out to the entire region. So that's where we're at. And Becky's always a great contributor. So, but that was kind of short and sweet. But if Jen, you want to add anything, or David, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I think Greg just had a similar question to that. And it was basically, so right now we have 4 providers in the region that use the same software. And because Indigo does not use the same software right now, it didn't make sense to do a pilot between Marion County and like Access Johnson County, for example. So it would the most sense for the partners that wanted to contribute and take effect that were on the same software platform right now, just happens to be Hamilton and Hancock counties. So that's how the 2 counties were decided. But all the counties have been invited to the TAC meetings and many of them have been participating.
Yeah, the only thing I would add. Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead. The only thing I would add is, this was part of the consensus process. So those 2 providers were, I think even the idea for the pilot came from one of them. So, and that was originally not something that we had planned to scope. Also, the counties are adjacent to each other. We felt as a group, the consensus was that we didn't want to string multiple, beyond 2 counties together. That would be a lot of travel time and a lot of complexity. So that's another reason why we landed on those 2.
Ron, also to add real quick, the goal hopefully is that one day we have a unified software in terms of support for dispatch. And that was another reason, as Jen alluded to, that there were 4 or 5 providers that actually use TripMaster. The others use various types of forms or use paper. But anyhow, that was one of the things we looked at and decided that we needed to make the pilot as simple as possible in terms of some of the transitions. And then as they learn from what's going on with the pilot, maybe we push that out and eventually hopefully have all counties on the same software, and that will require procurement, but that's one of the long-term goals.
Does that answer both of your guys' questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, gentlemen. Thank you. Next item up is partner contribution methodology. Jen, Brandy, and Phil.
And on the button. All right. So a part of the strategic plan that we implemented was one of my first goals, besides looking at all of our marketing at the agency and making sure it was in line with the strategic plan, which is something that Amanda Meyer, myself, and John Thomas worked on as a team to make sure we were set with that. Was the next step of the strategic plan was to try to figure out this idea of partner contributions. As you guys know, or may have heard me say in the past, that upon me taking my role as the gosh, even before the director, back in 2019, when I started to help kind of become the program manager and help in an interim role, I was given these numbers of this amount of money that we've been asking for partner contributions, and I had no instructions or information behind how these numbers were created. And as you can imagine, trying to go out and, sell that or educate people about where these numbers came from, I didn't have that information. And that's a hard conversation to have. So we sat together and with some advice from TransPro and taking a look at it, we worked together as a team, myself, Philip, and Brandy, to come up with a partner contribution methodology. Now, I will tell you that although we came up with this methodology, I'm not thrilled about it. I mean, to be quite honest and with you, it's at least something to help explain how we are going to ask for contributions moving forward. But I don't think this conversation is done yet, but I think it's at least something to get started and to bring forward to you. I'm going to ask Philip to kind of go through how we got these numbers. I can tell you it's based on population, based on what our needs are, immediate needs. It does not include my wish list of needs at this point in time. And we can go from there and answer any questions.
Can you hear me okay? So as Jen indicated, this is kind of a new technique for calculating what the contributions are going to be. As you know, CIRTA is funded from a variety of sources. It gets some federal funds, both competitive and some formula grant federal funds. It has funds that it receives for providing services to the economic improvement districts. And it has it gets public mass transportation funds from NDOT and has its local contributions from the member agencies. So we're talking about one facet or one component to the agency's funding. Still, it's a very important component because these funds can be used as local match, required local match for the federal funding sources. So even though they may be relatively small in terms of the overall context of the agency budget, they can still have large effects on the budget by affecting how much federal funds CIRTA can use. The local contribution methodology that we came up with was 2 steps. So the first step, as Jen indicated, was to figure out what the total amount that we wanted to ask for collectively among all the agencies. And then the second step was to partition that to each individual county. This second step is easier to explain. We took the most recent countywide population estimates from the American Community Survey, which are from 2022, and allocated the ask out proportionally to all the counties based on that figure. You can't see, I don't know if you can see the spreadsheet very well, but that is the part on the left-hand side of the spreadsheet is allocating out that ask between the 10 counties that are members of CIRTA's service area. The first step of assessing what we needed to ask was taking a look at the overall budget that we anticipated and doing some corrections. Some of the federal grants allow for us to draw down a certain proportion of administrative funds, which then go into our pool of local funds. We can treat them like local funds from then on out. So we anticipated a certain proportion of funding that we would be able to draw down that would meet that requirement. We added in a contingency as well. Historically, not all of the member counties contribute every year. So we have to account for that somehow. We took a wild ass guess that it was going to be about 20%, added that to the total, and then subtracted what we thought we could get from as the administrative drawdown from the federal funds, and came up with a total figure. That figure is around $322,000. That $322,000 then becomes the amount that we partition out by population to the 10 counties. That's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to explain any of the particulars, but at a high level, that's what we did. I don't know if there's anything about the budget that we used as the basis for this. Brandy can answer those questions. Jen can talk about what's in the budget relative to what the wish list is. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, and
ahead.
sure. And I guess just to say that you know, looking at this, it's also considering that one of the things I wanted to include with this is that we do receive revenue right now from the Whitestown and the Plainfield connectors. And it was important for me that when we were calculating this, that we kept that in mind, is at the end of the day, if that service continues or doesn't continue, what we would need to ask for partner contributions moving forward. So that's was included in this in case those services went away.
Thank you for the reminder that was another thing we considered. So in addition to the admin costs that we can assign to the federal funds, we do have the service fee that we charge to the economic improvement districts of Whitestown and Plainfield. Thank you.
We're happy to answer any other questions, but
I have just a couple thoughts, a couple questions. So, I mean, obviously every county is different, right? And so, and I know that every county has some of their own service providers. I mean, Marion County clearly has Indigo. I know Muncie has a bus company, so does Anderson. And, and also Delaware County being real far out. I mean, the people like where I grew up in Albany, which is almost at the other end of Delaware County, probably would never really get much service from CIRTA. So is it, we're just using the population of the entire county, regardless if it's really going to be getting any service, right? That's
correct.
One question. And you don't have to answer it, but just a thought. I guess in a nutshell, the counties that invest in their own stuff, should that be taken into account? I'm not saying it should or what that would look like, but should it be? Secondly, then, if you look at these numbers at the rounded request, some of these are probably less than people have been given, right? And some of them are way more than.
Some are less and some are more. I mean, and you know, that's the complexity of the topic.
Well, I'll just be blunt. So if you don't get anything from Marion County again, after all these years, then do you really want to reduce other people to something that's less if they're willing to give more? Because arguably, I guess I would say they think they get more value out of CIRTA than maybe somebody else. That's just, I'm not saying I think that, but
It's a very valid point, and I think it's one of the struggles of that why this has not been solved in 20 years. We were started 20 years ago without any kind of dedicated funding source. So, you know, to be frank, it's a really great question. We can get grants, you know, but those grants require local match. And where is that local match going to come from? That local match has to come from somewhere. You know, I've had conversations with the executive committee about looking into foundations, you know, and there was a little bit of pushback regarding that because foundations isn't, you know, it's not money guaranteed every month, but if we have unique projects, Indigo has a foundation. You know, it's one of those things is how do we how do we break this cycle of if we're going to have regional transportation? I mean, it's interesting to me because I'm just being very honest and open with you guys. And I know this is a public forum, but I sometimes joke with people that, I'm trying to solve all these regional transportation issues with no dedicated funding sources. And, in the last 6 months, I've had IEDC come to me on 2 separate occasions trying to solve these mass transportation issues because of all these businesses and super employers that they're trying to bring into the region. We know we lost Amazon because of a lack of regional transportation. So the question is, does the region want to continue to invest in this topic of transportation? Obviously, there's the local agencies and organizations, but they have their struggles. And a lot of the municipalities and the cities are already funding them as well. So we have a lot of work to do here, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I think that's something we need to continue to think about. Is this sufficient? Do we need to go back to the State House and look at other options, when it comes to funding? Good question.
Well, I'd like to say, I think you've done a really good job of getting federal money out of the MPO. And that's kind of our lifeblood, right? And so I think that's really good. And again, I think it has to do, and I don't know if people are going to believe this, political winds change over time, but continue to make the case, the value case for everybody we're asking for their money. And I know that you're doing better with that, and maybe we could even do better when we go ask the people who are, I'll say the people who traditionally in the last 7 years have been unwilling to put in money. Just keep taking another shot at them and see. But I don't want you to think that I think that you're not doing a good job, because you are. It's a tough sell, because everybody's got a lot of stuff to spend their money on. So
I might add, if you go back and look at the legislation which authorized the authority, one could conclude that it was designed to fail, that it was the legislature saying, well, here's the bare bones, and if you can't make it work, well, we told you so, that there's no need for mass transit. And it's I guess I marvel each year that we've survived as long as we have under those circumstances. I
didn't say that.
Well, and it would be nice to be able to go back to the General Assembly and say, see, we have survived despite the lack of provision for funding. And maybe the climate would be different in today's General Assembly. I sort of doubt it, but I think it might be well for us to at least go back and make a request for some means of providing funding for the organization. And also, kind of like following up what Greg was saying, if you look at the equity of the situation, 2 counties have benefited more than anybody else, and that's Hendricks County, my county, and Hamilton County, and counties like Delaware or Shelbyville have been contributors with essentially no benefit. So if you look at the equities, there's an unfairness there, and that's just an observation. I'm not complaining because my county has benefited, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that not everyone has had the benefit of the organization.
Jen, this is Jerry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can't get connected back to the internet in my room. I've tried multiple times. It kicked me off and and tells me it's not available. So I'm not for sure why. So So I missed some of the conversation there and I came back in, but Larry, thank you for that summary because I'd agree. There's many times when we thought that we wouldn't survive. But I also think that if we don't continue those efforts, then we're just capitulating to a constituency in central Indiana that don't want to see transit whatsoever. And it's interesting because at the conference I'm at now, which is the National Association of American Planning Association, their national conference, it's amazing to see the things that are going on in Minneapolis since the last time I was here and how driven they are. And on the way from the airport to my hotel, I actually rode the Hiawatha line, which is their new light rail line. Oh, pretty phenomenal. Cost me $2.50. Uber was $86 and a shuttle was about $26. So I got to my location for $2.50 and I had to walk a block to my hotel. So, I think we all can remember what we saw with Amazon in terms of one of the things that they were looking at. So eventually it will catch up to us if we're not willing to move forward in terms of how we need to act as a region. So, and I do believe that's going to be reality one day. And I got an opportunity to listen to the mayors of Scranton, Cincinnati, and Minneapolis yesterday. And some of the things that they're doing on a whole level of things was pretty phenomenal.
That's on April 19th.
Yep. So be quiet and ask for any additional input.
I'd like to say just one more thing. I think everybody recognizes that there's clearly a need for better regional transportation, public transportation in our region. Right now, with the political divide between the city and the state house, and all the messiness on the blue line and all that, there's not a cohesive message that says that the existing providers are all working together to get somewhere. The thing that I like about you, Jan, I think with you leading this agency, we have a willing participant in cooperation across all lines. And so if we can get to somehow, if we can change the, I guess the conversation at the State House about why Indianapolis can't seem to do what the State House wants them to do, so they're going to try to impose their own will, which they have. There's a bigger picture that we're missing because we're fighting about the littler stuff. Then, because I'm a glass half full kind of guy, that's how, to me, that's the direction it has to go. The conversation is not the right conversation at the state level. And whether they let get tax revenue or somehow they make everybody work together better, we're not even having the right conversations. And Rick, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's what it looks like to me. Politically, we can't get anywhere if we can't have a vision that everybody can get behind and try to sell it to the leadership. Then the leadership, of course, has their own issues trying to get anything through those bunch of knuckleheads over there. Excuse me.
Greg, those points are well taken. And I think that's really key. And it might be that we want to have some meetings with Rick and his team in regards to that. I think maybe we need to up our game a little bit in regards to that. So Jen, did I come through garbled or could you understand me?
We could understand you. You're fine.
Okay.
Well,
So,
yeah, I have,
go ahead.
this is Ron. I have one additional comment that one of the challenges is that this board has stayed, it's good that we've had a number of people that have stayed consistently for 20 years, but the legislature doesn't stay for 20 years. And unfortunately, then within counties, I'm not proud to say it, but I've not been able to convince Johnson County to contribute, partly because the political will there believes that our provider does an excellent job and they seek those funds. But, the political challenge, me being an elected official, part of that time and not part of that time. And then again, we are consistent as a board, but the people that we have to convince are not consistent. And that's, the challenge that we face politically, that is a reality that will change every 4 years, or every 2 years, or whatever it happens to be. And then, continuing to try to convince our own people. And part of what Larry said was that in its own way, that when I talk to our commissioners, that their concern is that what are we getting out of it as opposed to what we see others are getting out of it, because they do attend the commissioners meeting and the statewide commissioners meeting, and they have a belief in transportation. But I've had all these years, I've not been able to convince them why we need to support financially the regional part of it and the equity of it. And I don't have that answer. I'm just saying it's a reality we all face.
Well, my goal is to meet with every single one of you board members this year and our stakeholders to try to convince that otherwise. I can tell you that Becky from Access Johnson County would sit side by side with me and have that discussion to promote what we do. So I'm ready for those meetings if you guys want to attend. But that's my plan. So
What's the consequence for the local match miss? Like what's the multiplier effect for every dollar of local match on average that you could put into the letter to say that, we're, or is it, can you, I guess
it depends on the
that
program. For mobility management, the match is 1 to 4. That is, for every $1 CIRTA puts in, he gets $4 back. There's a little bit of, and it gets complicated, but because you can add a little bit of PMTF into that match mix, but the PMTF, the public mass transportation funds, there isn't very much of that. So practically speaking, it's not much of a game changer. For operational expenses, the match is 1 to 1. So $1 in, $1 back.
It seems to me, I don't know where you're going with this, Andrew, but if we had more to match, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have more money coming in. Like if we get twice as much money that we can match stuff with, doesn't mean we're going to get this other money, right? Because we have to get those through a different process. So it seems to me the message is more about the value proposition for the community and what we're getting out of the money and why we need more money to accomplish that and why it's worth it to every different group, right?
I think the maxim is them that has gets. So if you have the wherewithal, you're able to get more funds.
That's part of it. Phil, do you want to just, I'll chime in real quick on Andrew's question because this is a really good one. But I also think that one of the things to think about is there's a multiplier impact for every dollar that is expended in transit, and that runs between $4 and $5. So and Phil told you what we get back out of it. That's also your match provides the money that you can leverage, but the money that's generated back out into the economy is about $4 to $5 for every dollar worth of investment in transit. Then we have the discussion.
And there's nothing to vote on this today. This was a good discussion to get started. The ideal behind this was, to have the discussion, to come up with the methodology. But the discussion, I don't think is anywhere near from being done.
No, it was a good start. Very good start. Jen, it might be worth coming back and having a little further look at this with the Executive Finance Committee, and then bringing it back to the board and letting the board have a little more discussion at another time, and then we can move forward from there.
When are we going to do our next ask?
The next ask for 2025 is usually something that I would be starting to work on now and needing to be in the mail by usually July.
So we need to decide what we're going to ask and get it, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you know, by June, by the June board meeting is like my final cutoff for any decisions if we're going to ask these numbers for 2025.
Yeah, I would just suggest to, at least Marion County wise, those budgets are, they're getting built out now. So, I mean, I remember it was a few years back, Rick and I sitting in a hair salon lobbying some folks back years ago, but if we're gonna have those meetings, we got it there.
Usually we give the letters in April because the auditors are asking for everybody's budget now, May, and they start having their meetings in June. So they need that information now.
Do we have any, does the board have any issues with using the numbers that Jen presented today?
I would recommend that we don't ask anybody for less than they've been given.
Yeah.
So can we ask the people that haven't been given for whatever we want to ask for, because we may or may not get it, right? So if you ask Marion County for $141,000, I think you should ask them for that.
Yeah,
But
I absolutely agree. We might not get it, but that's okay. You still need to ask.
Sioux County's been given 50. I wouldn't ask them for 10. I'd ask them for what they gave last year. I made 50 up, by the way.
No worries. I mean, and I think that's fair and that's fine. If that's the direction we want to go. That defeats the purpose of having an understanding and a conversation though, of how we get to these numbers if somebody asks. But if that's what you guys will advise me to do, then that's what I will do.
I almost feel like it's too late for this year. Can't we start, I mean, go ahead and get the letters out now, but start the process this fall to talk to them about next year?
Absolutely.
Then I'm going to suggest, if it's a consensus of the board, that we consider just using the current numbers that we have so that Jen can get those letters out to the board, to the counties. Otherwise, we'll also miss, because Andrew's right, everybody's starting to work on their budgets for 25.
Yeah, and I think this is great what you guys are doing right now. This helps a lot, but this is going to take some time. And so we need to just get the information out now.
Okay, then we, if I'm hearing the consensus, we will use the same figures we have in the past, and we will work on getting those sent out. I will, first, I will send them all directly to let's talk about this, because this is never a conversation I've had with you guys as the director. So historically, we have sent them to the board members directly, and additionally, we have mailed them out. So you guys might want to handle each partner contribution ask separately, but do you guys have any preferences, or would you guys like to reach out to me on an individual basis to discuss how we want to send these?
I would hope that for Hendricks County, I hope you send a statement out for $26,000 and so $26,700. And I'll make a pitch to the commissioners. We've paid a flat amount for probably 10 years. And I think I can argue, and I don't know whether it'll be successfully, but if you send out a statement for the 26.7, I'll do my best to try to get the appropriation in the budget.
Okay, I appreciate that.
A couple ideas about Marion County, maybe Andrew and I can talk to you about that and who to send it to, and maybe how to drum up a little bit more interest this time. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Meet and talk about that. Yeah. Sooner rather than later, right? That's kind of the point too. Yeah.
Okay, Jen, you've kind of got a direction there from the board. Go ahead and use last year's numbers, and then we'll work diligently earlier this fiscal year in terms of what you assume starting this summer in regards to the new methodology. And you can do what you normally do, but make sure that you contact each board member so that they know how we're proceeding. So, any other discussion on this item? Thank you, Jen, Phil, and Brandy. Next item up is CIRTA program refresher, Amanda.
All right, so just a little bit of background on this. You know, as we're talking about the value that communities get from CIRTA, having a new board member present today, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of do a refresher on CIRTA and its programs and everything that we do. So that's what we will be doing right now before we give our legislative update and our director update. Thanks, Amanda.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I'm used to walking around when I talk, so I'm gonna have to like be mindful of this microphone here. But yeah, we were excited to share this with you because it's probably been a while since you've had a refresher. I know many of you have sat through meetings upon meetings and might feel pretty knowledgeable, and definitely respect your time here. But we want to make sure that we know the ins and outs of our programs so that we can share that value and what we provide to others. I encourage you to take notes of anything that maybe you didn't know before, or you think that those that you meet with and you have influence over, you might be able to share with them. And know that what I'm about to share, we adapt this all the time. I can give this presentation in 5 minutes, or I can spend a whole hour talking about everything that we do. So keep that in mind as you think about who we may be able to go share this with that you influence. But I wanted to start with a question for you, and it's rhetorical. You know, what do you think are the top 3 barriers for those in the workforce? Think about that for a second, the top 3 barriers. Statistically, that is housing, childcare, and transportation. And a lot of employers out there, they can't impact their people's housing, the cost of their housing. They can't do much about that. They can't do much about childcare without opening a childcare center at their place of work, which is very unlikely, although it does exist in certain places. But what they can impact is transportation in partnership with us. And so what we do each and every day, impacting transportation here at CIRTA, whether you serve on our board or you work in the front line on our outreach team, we get to make a difference. Let's make sure this thing works. There we go. So as you got to hear, we've hit our 20 years this year. And so in 2004, CIRTA came about with some grant money that could lower not only traffic in central Indiana, but that air congestion. So that's something that each and every day when we go and talk to employers and we talk to commuters, we are encouraging them, hey, not only can you help save money on your commute, but you can also help other people by commuting with them, by sharing the ride, and help the environment and reduce all that traffic that we sometimes, maybe it took you a little longer than you thought it should to get here this morning. But just think about if all the people shared the ride, how much that would help. As you know, serving on our board, we cover multiple counties. And so our outreach team does an amazing job trying to touch each and every one of these counties each month and each quarter. So we are always encouraging you guys, if you have anything you know of that's going on or someone we should meet in one of these counties, we would love to, but we keep our schedules full, right? If you were to look at their Outlook calendars, we are in these counties each and every week and able to make lots of connections. So our 3 primary programs, as you know, are Commuter Connect, our County Connect program, and our Workforce Connect program. Starting with Commuter Connect. So we really encourage people to find a way to get to work in other ways than riding in a car alone. And living in Indiana, we're a very car-centric state. So many people just think they need their car. They're reliant on it. They can't imagine not driving themselves to work. or just commuting in their car, but we really encourage them like, hey, make even small changes. Can you share the ride one day a week? Can you do it a couple of days a week? And it has become more challenging with people being hybrid, because even more so, it's hard for people to mesh their schedules, but it's not impossible. And we have plenty of people that are making the choice to take alternative transit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we encourage them to do that. So if you're not familiar, we have a free database that anyone can register for. Anyone in our counties, if they live or work in one of these counties, they can get registered for free. And so let's say, so I live in Plainfield. I'm in Larry's neck of the woods. And so when I commute downtown to our office, there are people that I know leave my neighborhood and are going downtown around the same time. And if I get registered in our database, which I am, then I can take a look and see, I put in my work address, my home address, which it never shares with anyone, by the way, for security reasons. And then I put in my work schedule, and it's going to send me an email within, we usually try to get it to them within about 24 hours, but business hours, but they're going to receive a list that tells them, here are the people that you live around and that work near you in a similar schedule that you could be commuting with and you could carpool with. It will also tell me if I'm on a bus line, if there's potentially a bike train that I could join on the way, and also has information about potentially joining a van pool. So it would be up to me, it's commuter driven at that point, to contact the people on those lists and to say, hey, I see we live near each other, we work near each other, would you be interested in riding together? So we're often asked if there's any kind of background check, which there is not. However, in our 20 years, we've never received a call that said, hey, I was paired with someone that I was just not comfortable or anything like that. So that's great to be able to share with our employers that we've got a lot of people that use this and are happy with not only the money they save, but sometimes they make new friendships. They're able to, most importantly, they can overcome that barrier of potentially not having a car or their car's broken down. So it's up to them who drives too. They have the choice of, maybe I prefer to drive every day and I want to be the driver. And so I can talk to the other person about, hey, I'm happy to drive, and they get to choose whether they share the cost of gas or not as well. So this just outlines here how easy it is. Simply sign up, receive your match list, contact your match, and then determine your plan together. With the van pool program, we like to think of it's sort of your carpooling on steroids, because we partner with Commute with Enterprise, and where a carpool is often 2, 3, maybe 4 people sometimes, a van pool we can do anywhere from 4 to 15 people. And so there's employers that we talk to every day who they sometimes have a group of people that ride together already, or even just a carpool with 3 or 4 people. And so we're able to give them this option, and it's a turnkey experience where they get to essentially rent a nice SUV or van together. And so one person would be our van pool coordinator, sort of like the captain of that van pool. And it would be up to them to keep track of the rider log. They are the ones to fill it up with gas. And we help them. We come alongside them and help them determine the best plan for the van pool, such as where can they safely park it? What route is it going to take to get to the workplace? And it's super affordable for folks, because not only are they sharing the cost amongst all the riders, but with our grant money, we are able to provide $50 per person per month, up to a certain amount. So that is dependent on how many riders they have, the mileage that they're going. But yeah, you think about to be able to have that amount of savings, and then you don't have to put the wear and tear on your car. You don't have to worry about if your car breaks down, what you're going to do, because it has 24/7 roadside assistance, and the maintenance is going to be included in that, the oil changes. There's so much that comes along with that. It is a very difficult sell sometimes. And that's because with these van pools, the employers start to ask about liability. And so we try to tell them, this is really an agreement between your employees and Commute with Enterprise. So there are those barriers to overcome with Vanpool, but a lot of times it's just a matter of getting one started at an employer, and then they see the benefit, not only the employer, but the employees. And so that's why some of you have heard about this pilot that we've been running, trying to get more started and giving them that first month free to be able to try it out. So this is a picture of an actual Vanpool that is running and just mentions how easy it is that we help people find a Vanpool to join. We help plan that schedule and the route. We find a secure place for the Vanpool to park, and we assist them in setting up payment in partnership with Commute with Enterprise. One of my favorite things I want to tell you though about the Vanpool, I remember when I first started thinking, that has to get kind of messy, people sharing the cost of gas in this Vanpool and having to be like, Sarah, you haven't paid us in 2 months for gas. Sebastian, you haven't paid us in like 3 months. What's going on? But what's really cool is the Vanpool coordinator gets a gas card essentially from Commute with Enterprise. They put the gas on there, and then Commute with Enterprise adds that. It separates it on their invoice. So they never have to have those conversations of who has and has not paid for gas yet. Love it. For anyone who is registered with Commuter Connect, that registration I told you about, then they are able to get up to 5 free emergency ride homes every single year. It is required that they work for what we call participating employer. And this is so important for you guys to know as our board, because it could be that you're like, wow, I didn't even know we offered this great resource and benefit. But you may be thinking like, okay, which one of my employers in my counties are participating? And I want to see more of them participating. So we could use your help in getting some even more employers to participate. And it's totally free for the employers. A participating employer to us is just an employer that partners with us, and they allow us to help educate their employees. It looks different for certain employers. So best case scenario, they let us come on site and we come and present maybe at an all hands meeting to introduce ourselves and let them know the basics of all these programs. But then they also let us come on site, whether that's monthly or quarterly or at their benefits and wellness fair. And we're able to connect with them as they're on their lunch break, for example. They can come and get some free swag, and we make sure they're registered. We might even take down if they're interested in a Vanpool. But having those opportunities, the more opportunities we have to be in front of their employees and make sure they're aware of these resources, even though we've been around for 20 years, do we not hear every single day, CIRTA? I thought that was a mattress. CIRTA with the D, we've got that competition now too. They are still learning who we are. So being able to go into those employers, tell these employees about these free resources, and it is a need for people. We get calls, do we not, Sarah, every single day of people saying, I need to get to work at XYZ. And if only they heard about it, if they were able to hear about us at their employer. This also gives us a chance to register them and make sure that they are eligible for their emergency ride home that I'm telling you about. Because if I, let's say, ride in a Vanpool to work and I get a call that my kiddo is sick at school and I need to go get them, well, crap. Well, now I've got to pay potentially $40 for an Uber to go get them. But with the emergency ride home, we are able to send a cab out with Z-Trip, formerly known as Yellow Cab, and it will go pick them up from work, and then the cab can make a stop at the school to pick up the kiddo and get them home. Same thing goes. We had a Vanpool that we started recently, and one of the riders rode to work in the Vanpool and then found themselves ill at work. And they were so sick that HR, they were sitting there with the person and contacted Sarah and was like, oh, Sarah, they're so sick. We've got to get them home. Can you help us? And Sarah was able to walk them through that process. I mean, think about the cost savings of not paying for an Uber. They don't have to have someone else take them home or just sit there, feeling ill because they rode in together with all these other people. There have been employers who've talked about how people ride in together, and because one person has to leave, the whole group of people leave and they lose all of that production because the whole group is gone now versus just one person leaving. So it is a really great option, but they do have to be registered and they have to work for a participating employer that's partnering with us. This slide talks a little bit more about what it means to be a participating employer. I explained that some already, but essentially someone on staff would be our point of contact. And so when our outreach team goes out, they're introducing themselves and they're trying to find someone, usually in HR, that likes to partner with us, but sometimes it's a manager, like a shift leader or a manager of the workforce. And so that is just our person that schedules, what meeting are we going to come speak at? When are we going to come and set up a table? So it could be that you're thinking of leaders in your communities that you might be able to introduce us to and say, hey, we need to make sure that they have all these resources at their fingertips. And you might be that one to make that connection for us. We often find we go and there's security and they're like, oh, we don't allow soliciting. We're like, we're not trying to sell anything. We're trying to help your employees. If you're not familiar, we also have a bike buddy program. And so we partner with Bike Indianapolis. They are a great resource here in Indy. They have seasoned riders that have years of experience of riding. In partnership with them, we're actually hosting coming up soon a mentor training. So those who are the bike mentors will be coming to our conference room to receive their updated training from Bike Indianapolis. And we're getting ready to add an option for the electric bikes too, because those are taking off more and more. And so these individuals, if someone is interested in biking as a form of transportation, we want them to feel comfortable. For someone such as myself, I have a bike. I love riding in the trails of Plainfield, but if I had to ride to work, I will admit, I wouldn't know what to do if I got a flat tire. I mean, I'd probably just, wave down a cab or something. I don't know. I'd be calling an Uber because I wouldn't know how to fix it. I wouldn't know what gear would be the best for me to comfortably bike to work, for example. And they go through these ins and outs, even how to turn properly. And so we encourage them to meet so many times during a period of time. And so a lot of these people, they form friendships, and then the person who has been mentored may end up becoming a mentor themselves. So the goal of just getting more people comfortable and more bikes on the road, it's not possible everywhere. It probably wouldn't even be that safe for me to bike from Plainfield, but we have plenty of areas that it is safe from and lots of trails. And especially those who live downtown, for example, or on the Monon Trail. We had a former employee who she would drive to a certain point and she would bike the rest of the way downtown. And I know Sebastian bikes some when he can. I know that David has even biked some for some outreach in the downtown area, for example. So there are people that want to bike and it's definitely an option. Our school pool program is one that has been growing this year. I know we didn't go over our Commuter Connect report, but our goal that we set for this year was to start the school year. Well, let me say first, we have 5 currently for this school year. Our goal was to double that. And we have doubled that to 10 schools that are ready to participate for the new school year. The team has worked really hard, stopping by schools when they're in your counties and just making sure they know about this program. And the way that it works, I know as a mom, when usually my kids ride the bus, but let's say it's one of those Monday mornings, they're wanting to sleep in a little bit. Well, when I go to take my kiddos to school, and I'm sure you've seen this as you're driving by the schools, there are so many parents lined up. There are neighbors of mine that I see driving in front of and behind me, taking their kiddos to school. And in the drop-off line or the pickup line at the end of the day, some of those parents show up over an hour ahead of time, sitting there with their cars idling, listening to the radio, playing on their phones. And you think about what that's doing with the emissions too. And why? Why aren't the parents riding together? Why aren't they saying, hey, you're going when I'm going, let's just take turns getting the kiddos? That's what our school pool program does. We match the parents together and give them an opportunity to decide if they want to share the ride, if they want to take turns taking the kiddos. And so it's a partnership with the schools. So where as a parent, I can say, hey, I want this at my kiddos, Plainfield Central Elementary. It doesn't work that way. The school would form a partnership with us at CIRTA. So we can get you the list if you'd like to see what 10 schools will be participating, but that is just a small amount of the schools we have in Central Indiana. What contacts might you have to help us connect with these schools? Because it is difficult. Sometimes we reach out and the principal might say, oh, you need to talk to my secretary. The secretary might say, oh, we don't do that. You need to talk to the superintendent. Superintendent says, nope, it's not us. So finding that right contact sometimes, whether that's at a school or even our employers, can be complicated, but we're always persistent in trying, and you may be able to help us with that. Next is my new baby, County Connect. With County Connect, we are able to be a resource and connect all of our counties that all of you represent. What we have found is that a lot of our calls that we receive, that Sarah receives each and every day, are people saying, hey, I have my grandma, she has a doctor's appointment. We live in Danville and we need to get her to downtown, whatever, you fill in the blank. They're needing to cross counties in order to get to different medical appointments or other things that they have going on. And so with these different senior services, with those with disabilities, we have so many great resources around Central Indiana and partners that we talk to each and every week. But we want to be able to find a way to share best practices, to find ways to make it less complicated and reduce barriers for those who are trying to cross counties as well. Let's see. If you go to our website, I'll mention there is a trip builder feature as well. And our new and exciting option, I know Karen's on, so she'll be happy to hear us talking about that, is the My Freedom program. So the My Freedom program, this one is for anyone 60 and above, or anyone with a disability of any kind. And so if someone needs to cross county lines for transportation for any reason at all, we are now able to help them out. It does need to be a county that is next to it, but it's for any purpose. Where we've talked a lot about transportation to work, this could be a social purpose. This could be a medical appointment. Whatever need they have to cross that county line, we now have this resource for them. This is not a free resource, but it is highly subsidized with CIRTA's dollars. And when you do a comparison, Karen and I were talking about this recently, it is almost always cheaper than it would be for an Uber or Lyft. Not always, but almost always. So it is great to know that there is an option for people that they, when we're sending grandma to an appointment, we don't want her to have to make multiple trips and having to do multiple forms of transportation and having to worry about that. We want to be able to make it as seamless as possible. And that is one way of doing so. With the Workforce Connector, this is an option for connecting people who are looking for job opportunities, and oftentimes they're able to find more opportunities and higher paying opportunities. So our Workforce Connector, it starts downtown near the transit center, and folks get on the shuttle and take it. In the morning, we have an express at 5:10 a.m. And so they start downtown. They could come from any location. I mean, any way that they can, they make it downtown. And so this shuttle will take them into Plainfield, and a different one taking people to Whitestown. Just recently, as you're aware, we started the zero fare option. So folks can get on these buses, and we have 24 stops in Plainfield, for example. I mean, just think about all the warehouses, a lot of our phone calls every day are people calling to ask Sarah, like, hey, I'm taking a job at this warehouse. Like, what bus stop would I use? And can you tell me more about the times and how that works? So really great opportunity to connect people to jobs that they otherwise wouldn't be connected to. And for our employers in Plainfield and Whitestown to be able to give them an even broader range of workforce that can connect to them without that transportation barrier, because they can get there. So a little background information, if you're wondering, if you're new with us and you wonder how that was started, CIRTA provided some FTA startup funds that required local match, and they received some funding through the EIDs that was authorized through state code. And so back in 2020, the Plainfield and Whitestown EIDs were formed, and then initially commuters paid $1 each way to access that. But now we've got the zero fares this year. let's see, I see the top of that is cutting it off a little, but one thing I wanted to just make sure you're aware of, May is Bike Month. And so just something exciting to share with you, or you may want to share with those employers that you are connected with, is that if anyone wants to register, if they haven't registered yet, they have a chance to win a $250 gift card in celebration of Bike Month and encouraging alternative transportation for the month of May. And so we will have a large event that will take place at Luger Plaza. We've been partnering with Bike Indianapolis to plan that event. And that's, Sarah, remind me, what was the date on that? Is it on there? May 17th, thank you. So if you're free and you want to join us on May 17th, I know they're doing some breakfast and a DJ and some fun stuff going on, pretty similar to what we do for Car Free Day, but more focused on biking. And then save the date for Thursday, September 19th will be Car Free Day. We've already got our name reserved for Monument Circle again in the beautiful Spark space. So would love to have you for that if you want to put that on your calendar as well. So last thing that I want to challenge you on is how you as our board could help us out. I mentioned some of this already, but you have connections that we may never have. Jen may know some of your connections. I may know some of your connections, but there are many that we may never come across that you could think of that you could introduce us to, whether those are business owners or HR directors or those that you serve on councils with, for example. We would love to meet those people and have the chance. Like I said, I can cover our programs in about 5 to 10 minutes if I have to. So if someone gives me a few minutes in their meeting, Jen and I can certainly do that. We also want to make sure that our information is added to your website. So if you have a town website, a city website, a county website that you know we are not listed on, we certainly want to do that. We want to continue to spread the name of CIRTA and all the resources that we have available. You probably know better than us of what events are coming up in your counties as well. So as you can educate us on those, and especially if they're little to no cost, we try when we can, since we're kind of quasi nonprofit, we try when we can to get that nonprofit rate so that we can save CIRTA a bit of money there. But sometimes we got to put forth a bit more money for something when we see that it's definitely worth our time to connect with the community. But you might have some strings that you can pull to get us in at a reduced rate. And then certainly invite us to sit at the table at appropriate meetings and to present whenever you see that it's appropriate as well. Maybe you want to have for Earth Month, you want to have us out sometime, or maybe for Car Free Day, you want to have us just pop in and mention that Car Free Day is coming and how people can make a difference. So we could certainly use your support in these different areas. Well, that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
I might ask you one more thing.
Sure.
So when you were talking about the EIDs, I know a few years ago, there's a lot of talk about other communities wanting to start that up. I haven't heard much about that lately. Is there anybody else that still sort of wants to get into the game?
Jen, you can probably answer that better than me.
Yeah, we've had some initial conversations with a couple of communities, but I think the important part right now is going through, we've been going through this study this year to take a look at what the future of, the current, yes. So till we get through that and see if we are going to continue with the services that we have right now and keeping them, perhaps we keep them as a fixed route option with zero fares and do things to improve the service from that perspective. Or perhaps the EIDs will decide to make them go to the demand response recommended microtransit service. But now we have those resources, and now we're learning more and more with inflation and the high cost of what we can sell and what we can promote to these other agencies and communities and moving forward.
This was excellent. Thank you very much. On the Whitestown connector, when Nathan was on the board, they were talking about maybe moving one of the stops to that Traders Point area for the Whitestown connector. Did that happen, or is it still just downtown?
We currently serve that area now.
Okay.
We have since the beginning. I think the discussion that you might be thinking of was that we were looking at potentially moving it to the 38th Street location.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not Traders Point, 38.
It was evaluated, but it would added a lot of additional time to the current service, which would increase the cost even more.
Okay.
So that was pretty much ruled out, unfortunately, at this point. I'm glad I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I felt like it was important. It's probably been a while since you guys have heard about all of the things that we have to offer. So I certainly appreciate Amanda presenting to us today on this. And as always, we're always here to help answer any questions and work through this as a team to bring more education to the region on our programs.
Well, and I don't know
Jen?
if I mentioned, we have 11,000, it's like almost 600 registrants now, which is huge. So definitely the more we can get connected with those employers that you have relationships with, the more we can grow that number and help people with the barrier of transportation. So thank you for what you guys do too.
Jen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I got back online. So it took a while to get off my phone to actually get back here. Amanda, I want to say thank you very much. And Jen for also for that. I think it was really good, especially for all of us. I think it's a good refresher, but I also think it was really good for Kylene since she's our new board member. Got a couple other things that we need to get through, but thanks again, Amanda, and we'll go to Rick. Legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick and Abby couldn't be here. They're at a meeting in Washington, DC, so I wanted to step in. We finished up a few weeks ago, the short session. We always go into those kidding ourselves that it's not going to be controversial, and it always is. It was called a short session. It was only 10 weeks. It was a non-budget year, but that didn't stop them from dealing with a lot of issues. I'll go over a few of those. There were 745 bills filed this session. We went through them, the three of us, to look at the impact to you and your members, and thousands of amendments proposed. 175 of those became law, so it's a little over 20%, about 24% actually, bills filed became law. One of those changes, probably long-term significance, is the highway study was extended for a year. It was created a couple of years ago to take a comprehensive look at the funding formulas. There's a disproportionate share going to rural communities, and so they were trying to address how to fix that without harming those rural communities. And as you can well imagine, that's a lot more complicated than probably people initially thought. I suspect that it was extended. The report was due at the end of this year. They extended it a year. Partly, I'm guessing, because we're going to have a new governor, and this is going to have an impact on how the state does its funding and NDOT. But when you roll it over to 25, you're back into a short session, and it's a non-budget year. So I really don't know if they can do a lot of money moving in a non-budget year, but perhaps. But that was pretty significant. A bill that we didn't like banned giving free rides to election centers on election day. We were able to chat with other providers because, as you know, a lot of these services are free. Then you put the provider into determining what day it makes you a criminal and where are you taking that person. Could be a janitor to a school that happens to be a polling place, and you just broke the law. So that went away with us and a lot of the coalition of other providers at the talking to legislators. Of course, the big fight was the dedicated lane issue again. Who would have thought that when the legislation was passed 10 years ago, and the voters overwhelmingly approved the mass transit funding in Indianapolis with a 63% margin, I think that's the number, 8 years ago, that we would still be in a fight to defend that. To Ron's point earlier, the legislature has changed. If that bill were up now to create the red line and the blue line, it wouldn't pass the General Assembly. There's just this disdain for transit. There's disdain for all kinds of alternative systems. But even at the time, it was tough. You know, we heard over and over and over about, we see empty buses. Well, there's 90,000 miles of empty county roads. We'll spend $300,000 for a bridge that serves 3 families, but somehow there's just a resistance to provide public transportation for people that are need to get to work. We've beat that back several times. In fact, Pat Tam and I killed that in Ways and Means Committee a couple of years ago. We had Chairman Pressel, the House Chair of Transportation, had blocked it. It comes out of the Senate. This year, he wasn't able to do so. At the end of the day, there were some negotiations between the city and the State House leadership to agree to do some limited dedicated lanes on Washington Avenue. And so the issue has gone away. Hopefully it's gone away for good. I think so. I think the blue line is going to be moving far enough. The purple line, they're going to be far enough, pun intended, down the road that there's not going to be an opportunity to do this. There's an extraordinary amount of micromanagement of local government at the State House. I've taken the call on them, the Super County Council. This is not isolated. In addition to trying to control the Indigo's transit system by statute, they, as you read, wanted to limit traffic safety issues, speaking of specifically the don't turn right on red on a couple of downtown intersections where people were getting run over. But we see it in other areas. They've gone into planning and zoning. They had a bill this year to override a zoning issue in Monroe County. Covers all 92 counties because one legislator didn't like what was going on in a very well thought out policy by the local planning zoning board. But the General Assembly decided that people that elected them are really smart and people that elect county city officials are not so smart. So, and then lastly, it's fun to tell you that last summer, Nate Messer and Jen asked us if there's a chance that we could allow for growth in the EIDs. They were locked in, and if a business wanted to join, there was no provision for that. I'm a firm believer in Tip O'Neill's rule that all politics is local. So we had Nate talk to his senator, Senator Buchanan, who offered to help fix that. And once he said yes, we reached out to him and discussed language and a strategy. And he wanted to do it by amendment and not have a standalone bill, partly because, as you also know, the EEDs were very, very controversial. They allowed the city of Indianapolis to pass it. And then when it did, they repealed that. And so that became, we wanted to stay separate and out of that fight. And we waited till a omnibus local government finance bill came over to Senate Finance. Senator Buchanan put in language that allows a local unit to grow an EID if it's requested by the business and the members of the EID are supportive. There was an amendment put in we weren't a fan of that said a future buyer of that property could opt out, but it gives us a mechanism to grow EIDs, which is fun because it tells us that it's working. If we've got people that want in those because of the services we provide, then it's a success. So that's a nutshell of what's happened on the transportation world. Embedded in all of the Indigo conversations where these talk about the state taking over Washington Street and Meridian. To this day, I can't figure out why, because the city took those over decades ago. Benford Boulevard, the city took over, agreed to maintain. I don't see how logistically it works that your two major arteries are now controlled by state government in your municipality, but maybe somebody smarter than I am figuring out how that's going to be helpful to the parties involved. I'm happy to answer any questions or address some of the previous conversations if you.
The comment you made about going into 2025 for the study on the road funding. Other than kicking the can down the road, what is the reason for them going into 2025?
I'm going to assume they don't have answers. Because it is a pretty thorny issue. I've maintained all along, and we probably missed the opportunity. The last time the state increased the gas tax, they put in a provision of an automatic escalator based upon inflation. We should have been probably on our toes and maybe tried to capture some of that. It's always harder to change how you cut up the pie without making the pie bigger. And so there are many, many rural legislators who are like, okay, I think the study, the City of Indianapolis Commission showed something like for every dollar they put in, they get back a few cents. But something like Ohio County, for every dollar they get back in, they get multiple dollars in exchange, just to show the discrepancy in the funding formula to rural areas versus urban areas. And I think there are some legislators that buy into that needs to be addressed. They just haven't figured out how to skin that cat. And of course, along with it, our gas tax is probably going to go away eventually. We're getting more hybrids. We got more electric vehicles. Knock on wood, we get more transit. There's just that source of revenue is probably not going to continue to grow like it has. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Rick. Thanks, Rick. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, Larry's had a question.
Larry has a question or comment.
Just a comment. I seem to recall some years back, General Assembly came up with acknowledged the idea of home rule. What's happened?
Larry's question, Jerry, is what's happened to home rule? In the early 80s, believe it or not, I wasn't lobbying yet then. But they had a comprehensive rewrite of the statute. Prior to that, local government could not do anything unless it was expressly allowed by state statute. They flipped that and said, if the statute's silent on it, then you can do it. You don't have to come here all of the time. That was done in, I think, 1981, and we've spent every legislative session since then cutting away at that, chopping away at that. It was called home rule, but now you can't do just about anything without going to the legislature. It shows up. It shows up. You can pass a food and beverage tax, but you got to report to the General Assembly on a regular basis what you're doing with the tax that you raised. So they've gotten into the micromanagement. I believe the Lake County bus system statute even says what they can put on the side of the bus. There's been dozens, I mentioned planning and zoning, dozens of issues over the last few years on regulating those. There are a lot of things that local government expressly prohibited. Here's an example. You can't regulate Airbnbs because the state law says, well, we know that that's a land use issue. In Bloomington and Lafayette, it's a real problem because there's a housing shortage. Guess what? Companies are buying up vacant homes to turn them into Airbnbs because they're a high profit center than renting to students. So there's dozens and dozens of examples, and we see it every year, an erosion of that. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Rick.
Rick also thank Patrick and thank Abby as well for all your hard work. Next item up is Jen, executive update.
Yeah. First of all, I'd just like to make sure that I thank Indigo for hosting this beautiful building and allowing us to be here today. After the meeting, Ryan Wilhite in the back is willing to do tours of the facility with anybody who may be interested. So please just go to the back by Ryan and we'll go from there. I also would like to just quick make a shout out and introduce you to our newest member of our leadership team, Sebastian. Sebastian, if you can stand up real quick. Sebastian was hired to join the CIRTA team and is now overseeing the Commuter Connect Carpool Vanpool program. He has been a fantastic resource for us so far. He has a management background in the hotel and hospitality industry as an Indigo ambassador, as well as somebody who knows firsthand the importance of bicycle safety and things to that extent. And I just want to welcome him to the leadership team. With that being said, I am combining a bunch of our staff reports today into one big report for you guys for the due to timing, because I knew this meeting would go long. So early planning has started to begin for our community events. We have already scheduled over 20 events so far for the summer. So we're looking to add those events as we mentioned. And also would like to mention that we have, since our last board meeting, registered 304 new commuters and connected with several new employers. Some of them, we finally broke 5 below in Shelby County. Yay. So excited about that. Thank you to David and Sebastian for that. That's been one we've been trying for, it feels like a year, at least. I don't know. It's been a while, right, Amanda? We have recently had a great conversation and meeting with DHL. Also the Solely Organic, which is another great example of a company who we went out there the first day and registered over 40, I think it was almost close to 40 employees. And recently connected with a Kroger distribution cold storage, just to name a few and of the companies. But the team has been busy. We have, since our previous mobility manager of David Krieg leaving and backfilling his position with Amanda, getting her up to speed, backfilling that with Sebastian, we still have one more position to fill. So if you know any good candidates, send them our way. Also wanted to say one of the other things we promote employers to do in our region is to implement commuter benefits. So commuter benefits are something like carpool parking, something above and beyond what people do. So whether it's they pay subsidized van pool or bus fare, carpool parking is an example. In addition, we had 2 new employers recently that implemented carpool parking signs, and one right down the street from here, Volumon, who is actually giving gas cards to newly registered carpool groups to help encourage the behavior. Today we're going live with 3 new schools in Irvington for our school pool program, the community elementary school, the middle school, and the prep academy school, serving over 955 new students. So I'm excited again, as Amanda mentioned, of how we're going for that. And just so you know, every year a school has to agree to come back. So we've served a lot of schools during the year, but every year they need to recommit to be in the program. The connector program, we're meeting with both EIDs within the next month. Tomorrow, Plainfield and Whitestown has a new EID board. So we will be meeting with them in the next 30 to 45 days. Good news when it comes to the connector program. We just finished our drug and alcohol audit and completed and passed. So that was exciting to have that behind us. I want to talk a little bit just about the My Freedom program. I know Karen is still on the call. So far, we have had the My Freedom program has had 102 applicants and have performed 56 trips. And it was important for me today to just real quickly here talk about some of the people who are utilizing this program. We are providing the program is providing vocational rehab from Johnson County to Marion County. There's somebody using it from Hamilton County to Marion County for an internship. Somebody using it from Hamilton County to Marion County. They're being picked up at 3 a.m. after work for regular socialization with family. Marion County to Hamilton County for physical therapy. Plainfield to Marion County for church. Plainfield to IU West and Methodist. And Karen shared with me that new applications have been coming in for Shelby County, and I'm excited about that. Amanda and I recently met with Shelby County Senior Services, and my guess is they're helping us push that out pretty hard based on our conversations there. So that was just a little bit I wanted to do to share with you about so far where we are with the My Freedom program. Again, I want you guys to remember one of the things about this program is that, yes, it can cross county lines and it can be used within any county as well, except Marion County, because Indigo serves the Marion County residents. But this is the first time since this program has relaunched that a senior over the age of 60 can have transportation for any reason 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's something I'm excited about for the population. Other things to just update you on, we're in the heart of our State Board of Account audit, hope to be wrapped up by that by the end of May. And otherwise, I'm going to keep my reports to that right now. And please let me know if you have any questions. And again, thank you to Indigo and for you guys all being here today.
Jen, real quick,
Yep.
Karen would like to say something.
Yeah, Jen, I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify that the 56 trips were taken in March. We've actually had a total of 113 trips between December, January, February, and March. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Even better. Go ahead.
I have a question about the school band program. I don't know if I listened to this properly, but I thought IPS had something this year that they were reducing their service and it was basically you had to opt in. Has that had any impact on the availability of the school program?
So with the school pool program is basically any school that's out there that it wants to work with us in our region, we can work with them. So, and we have not heard from them. I know Sarah has reached out to them and regarding, on several attempts has reached out to them regarding the school pool program to see if they wanted to participate. Again, it's free for schools to participate. So there's a lot of different reasons why schools participate. Schools participate for reasons like Amanda was describing, right? The idling but really a lot of the times the reasons why schools are participating with us, it's because they don't have access to the yellow bus school bus system. They're a private school, they're a charter school, or they're cutting service. So there's that perspective of it. So if you hear of those schools or have those contacts, please share them with us because we would love to try to help them with this resource. We've had one charter school that has come back to us every single year, Heron in Riverside. They come back to us every single year to promote this as a part of their new hire orientation. I can tell you, I would love to see more schools participating in this. I can tell you right now in Hamilton County where I live, I have 5 schools within walking distance to my home. And the taxpayer dollars and the resources from the police department of having to deal with the traffic control, it's surreal. So again, any of those examples are reasons people can participate and, we're happy to have those conversations. Does that answer your question? Okay. Are there any questions or comments from anybody online?
Jen?
Yes.
I was going to say, yeah. Go ahead, because I was just going to wrap it up, if that's okay.
No, we're good.
I want to say thanks to the board. It's been a long meeting. I want to say thanks to staff for their hard work. To our consultant teams, our finance team, to Rick's legislative team, also to Ann, and thanks to Transpro for their hard work. Our next meeting will be June 11th, and it will be at the Community Health Pavilion in Saxony, and that's on Oleo Road in Fishers. So be prepared that the next meeting is going to be on the road again. Ryan, I want to thank you and all the Indigo team for inviting us to be there. I wish I could have been there today. It looks like a lovely, a really beautiful facility. So something to be proud of. But thank you for hosting us today with your space and your willingness to basically give folks tours at the end. There's no other discussion that needs to be had. You do need a motion for adjournment.
Years ago, we met in the Indigo boardroom, West Washington Street, and this is so impressive compared. I mean, this is impressive.
It is a beautiful facility. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Safe trip home and thank you again. Bye.